Hi, my name is Victor Counted. Today I'm going to be giving a presentation on transcending place attachment disruption during a public health crisis. Now, for those of you that might be interested in reading the paper, we have the paper that it's published with the Journal of Psychology and Christianity and the special issue on COVID-19, faith, and mental health. So I encourage you to check it out because I might not be covering most of the things on the paper during this presentation. So I have about 10 minutes to do, and I'll pass the mic. So I just want to first of all to thank Laura for putting this session together because I think it's very important that we have this kind of discussion, this where conversations around mental health, faith, and COVID-19. Our paper, I was also blessed to work with some incredible scholars, my friend Richard, Laura herself, and also Megan, who last year we came together and had to put our thoughts on paper and develop the paper. So I want to incredibly thank them for being a part of this project. So I think our point of departure in the paper is that people have a positive relationship with place or emotional bonds to certain places. And this in environmental psychology, it's called place attachment. And there's like about 4 decades of study on the topic of place attachment. And one of the things that we try to do in the paper is to bring this place attachment concept in environmental psychology and look at a concept in psychology of religion, in particular spiritual struggle, and see how to fuse um, uh, both concepts and come up with something novel and new. But essentially, our argument was that due to the pandemic, the lockdowns, and the things that followed this, the COVID-19 pandemic, people seem to experience a sense of a disruption to their place attachment because there's been limited access to places of attachment, such as university campuses, really places of worship, places that we go on vacation, cities and things, places of our daily rounds, really. There has been some kind of disruption to the connection that we have with these places because of the stringent lockdowns and things that has been imposed as part of the public health control measures. Our argument was that this has led to three responses, essentially, especially as people try to grapple with the lockdown. The first is protest. Protest. The second is despair, and the third response is detachment. Now, I will unpack what these three responses actually mean. At the protest phase, what happens is that people at this point they are signaling their dissatisfaction with the separation experience that they are having with their places of attachment. So we see people protest, especially during the COVID-19 pandemic. We see people protest their lockdown laws through either spreading the spread of conspiracy theories. We see people protest or disregard public health control measures. These are indices or examples of the protest response. But with the despair phase, at the despair phase, people cross to that phase when they've expressed their dissatisfaction, but perhaps no one has paid attention to them. As a result of that, there's a sense that they might feel that they've lost their attachment to the places or the object of attachment that they were once drawn to. And the reason why they would feel like this is because that overall feeling that nobody paid attention, and as a result, perhaps is because, well, I can have access to this place. Now, with places, especially during the pandemic, we find this despair phase in the way people expressed agony over the disruption to their place attachment bond. And this, of course, and a good example, it's the lack of confidence in the government, whether it's in dealing with the pandemic. And we saw that in the anguish that was expressed by people during the COVID-19 pandemic. Of course, we also had a lot of people expressing feelings of hopelessness and helplessness. Those are examples of the despair response. But the third phase, I think, is very important, which is the detachment response. The detachment phase, essentially, what happens here is that people try to explore new relationships that can help them make sense of what is happening. And now, during the pandemic, we saw that in incredible ways. We find, for example, we find people exploring new forms of relationships through online communities. And essentially, what is happening is people trying to make sense of the situation, whether it's through turning to online community, through exploring, for example, a relationship with the sacred or with God in order to make sense of this. Now, let me retract and say something. It's important to note that the this attachment disruption framework is not wasn't originally developed by me or my colleagues. It's the original work of John Bowlby, who was the pioneer of attachment theory. What we've done, or what I've done that is different, is that I've looked at this framework in relation to place attachment. So, which I think brings renews interest in the concept and how that can be applied to contemporary life. Now, within the detachment phase, because that's where we find a connection to spiritual struggles, as people try to explore as people try to explore relationships, as people try to explore relationships with places, and those relationships has been disrupted. Now, what happens? People at the detachment phase might start to explore new relationships, and one of those relationships could be the relationship with God, or finding a sense of spirituality in that process. So, religion and spirituality can become a meaning making framework for a lot of people within the detachment phase. Now, as a result of that, because religion can be that meaning making framework for people, one of the things that we might tend to experience is that we might find people who might, in that process of the detachment phase, want to engage their faith, or explore relationship with God. The second category of people that we could find in this context would be people that the detachment phase will be an opportunity for them to deepen their relationship with God, because now they don't have access to their city, the places that was part of their daily round. So the relationship with God becomes the focal point of their daily experience and their meaning making framework. Now, the third category of people, which connects more to the spiritual struggle exploration, the spiritual struggle phenomenon that we are talking about in this context, in this paper, it's those that might the detachment phase as they wrestle in with their faith, as they wrestle with trying to deepen their relationship with God, and the questions around the pandemic and the resource loss kind of conflicts with their understanding of their faith. And as a result of this third category of people are very likely to lose their faith. They might leave their faith completely. They might abandon their relationship with God because they can't make sense of what is happening. Now, why is this important, especially when we look at the clinical implications? It's because I believe there are therapeutic benefits from when we intentionally look at place-based experiences. Now, the first could be, especially when we are working with clients, it's important if places are that powerful in people's life then it might mean that, and if our relationship would place a disruption with this relationship, if it can constitute some kind of spiritual struggle and a mental health problem, then what this means is that it's possible, it's important for clinicians and those working with people dealing with these experiences to identify which aspect of their client's subjective experience are actually rooted in their connection to places of significance, because oftentimes it's possible that the reason why most of our clients and people coming to us for counseling might be having increased mental health problems might be due to the experiences that they are having during this pandemic that is rooted in their disruption to places of their attachment. And I think that's important. But due to this, how do we respond to this? I think it's important that we find creative ways for clients to process place-based disconnection or place-based loss. And in our paper, we proposed perhaps looking at experiential therapies, because that could be one of the ways we could help people to reconnect with the places that they've lost and see how their place attachment experience, whether in the past, in the present, can also help shape their future experiences and help them have a well balanced and meaningful perspective when it comes to attachment loss. So I hope that you've gained something from this, and I hope that I've not wasted your time. But for more information, feel free to look at the paper, Transcending Place Attachment Disruption During a Public Health Crisis. I believe that it has explained and addressed some of the things that's been discussed during this presentation. Thank you, and I look forward to hearing from the other speakers. Thanks. Bye.